genomes possess tremendous psychological power, and in that sense, the manila envelope contained the fragments of a self that might have been. For the first time, I started pondering in earnest the age-old questions about nature and nurture. How much of who we become is due to genetic factors, and how much is shaped by our experiences and environment, and ultimately, by our choices? Would we be markedly different if we had different parents and formative experiences, or would we be largely the same? I'm sure my biological mother also wondered about the road not taken. How did giving away her child in her late teens mold and shape her for the rest of her life? How might she have been different had she made a different choice? There is a reason that alternate realities populated by doppelgangers are among the most common tropes in science fiction and fantasy. Curiosity about my own life prompted my interest in the science behind the self, namely, how a fully conscious, unique individual emerges from the genetic primordial ooze. It is a daunting subject. Each of us has a self, and because of this, we may think we understand the self. We don't. We can't even agree on what we mean by the self. There is no common vocabulary, making it difficult to discuss the science in a way that allows for fine demarcations of meaning across very different disciplines. Ask a physicist, and she might tell you that you are a collection of atoms, made up of even smaller subatomic particles, obeying well-defined laws as they interact via forces. Ask a biologist, and he might tell you that you are an organism whose form is the result of complicated processes involving genes and proteins and countless biochemicals, working in tandem with environmental factors to shape a unique individual. A neuroscientist might point to the intricate wiring of the brain as the essence of self, while a social psychologist might say we define who we are via our interactions with others and our place in society, or by our stuff, the material objects with which we surround ourselves. And if you ask certain French philosophers, you might be told that the self is primarily a cultural construct, and reality itself is just a persistent illusion, at which point your head will explode. At least one thing is clear. The nature versus nurture dichotomy is simplistic and outdated, long ago confined by serious scientists to the dustbins of history. As Francis Galton framed the question back in 1874, nature is all that a man brings with himself into the world. Nurture is every influence that affects him after his birth. Galton was one of the first to conduct a formal study of identical twins, now a mainstay of such research. Yet even he admitted that this definition is a convenient jingle of words, for it separates under two distinct heads the innumerable elements of which personality is composed. There is no question that blood will out for certain traits. I am within an inch of height and roughly the same weight as my biological mother before her pregnancy, with similar skin tone and hair color. Surely it is no coincidence that I was also bright and musically inclined, latching onto piano, guitar, and voice lessons with far more enthusiasm than my adoptive siblings. I blame my strapping Norwegian biological father for my broad shoulders and back, although his athleticism may well be reflected in my love for swimming, bicycling, and martial arts. Once, while attending a conference in Copenhagen, I stood next to a Norwegian woman in the restroom as we washed our hands. Our eyes met briefly in the mirror, and I was startled by the marked similarities in our facial features. Adopted children are unaccustomed to strong familial resemblance. But there are also less tangible traits that undeniably reflect, to varying degrees, the influence of my early home environment and unique life experiences. When I developed blisters on vacation while walking all over Florence and Paris, I refused to stop walking every day, even when a mild infection set in. "Why are you doing this to yourself?" my baffled husband asked as I hobbled down the street. "I didn't come all the way to Europe to take cabs everywhere or stay in the hotel room," I retorted. It is certainly plausible that this stubbornness has a genetic basis, but my sister visited us in Los Angeles a few weeks later with a badly twisted ankle and insisted on